Hi guys, this is Aniko. Today we're going to start talking about defense in Star Wars The Old Republic. Defense is going to have a couple parts to it, and just as with the last video I did on fighting, I'm going to try to keep this video short and give you the tools you need to figure out how to play any of the classes, because doing a video for every possible class, every possible build would just be crazy. And because, quite frankly, I have not personally played every possible build. And if I ever get to that point, I think we can safely say I have no life. So, if you're a more experienced player and you've got advice to add for a specific class, or you notice a glaring omission of something, feel free to call it out in the comments. Everyone will benefit. So, since this is a 101, I'm going to get very basic here. Let's talk about your armor. If you're starting a character at level 1, you will get some basic armor, but from there, except for drops you might get from quests and that sort of thing, you are on your own for making sure your armor is up to snuff. If you don't regularly upgrade your armor, fights will be harder. So, once you're off your first planet, the first thing you're going to want to do is find an orange set of armor. It's also known as adaptive armor, and you might also hear it referred to as moddable armor. Adaptive armor sets are pretty easy to come by. Someone in your guild might have a set of oranges they're willing to give you. There are almost always cheap adaptable armor sets on the Galactic Trade Network, aka the GTN. If you're really hard up for cash, but have a lot of common data crystals, you can also visit the level 8 equipment vendor in the supplies area of the fleet. He sells adaptive armor sets loaded with some level 8 modifications for 6 common data crystals apiece. Use any combination of the above to get what you need. When you're done, you should have an adaptive item in all the slots you see here. FYI, earpieces, implants, and relics are never adaptive. If you get one of these as a quest reward in the first 55 levels or 60 levels, take it unless you happen to be able to craft one of these items yourself. You will save yourself money by just taking it. Now that you've got your adaptive armor on the fleet, you just open your map and find the vendor of modifications closest to your level. This character is level 27, so she would go to the level 26 vendor. As you can see, as I'm mousing over these vendors for modifications are in 4 level increments. So every 4 levels, you should mosey on up to the fleet and replace what you can afford to replace. Now, if you have all adaptive gear, you will have to buy a total of 25 modification pieces for a full upgrade. At a rate of 2 common data crystals per modification, that means I need to have 50 data crystals to fully upgrade my armor. You can check how many data crystals you have by going to your currency window in your inventory and looking here. As you can see, this character has more than enough common data crystals. And if I mouse over her armor, you can see here that she has mods that are rating 66. If I then mouse over a mod in this vendor, you can see these mods are a rating 70. So I should probably upgrade her modifications. Now, let's say you don't have enough data crystals for a full upgrade. If that's the case, upgrade your armor first, hilts and barrels second, followed by mods and enhancements. As you can see, I have 2 choices at this vendor: Resolve Armor, which gives me almost equal amounts of mastery and endurance, and Versatile Armor, which gives me more mastery at the cost of endurance. Endurance is a measure of how tough you are. The more endurance you have, the less damage you'll take. So if you feel like you're a bit squishy, you might want to go for more endurance. On the other hand, mastery is connected to your combat abilities. Generally, this is your damage and healing output. At higher levels, picking mods for your armor and weapons becomes a real art form of stat balancing and tweaking. But frankly, until you hit the higher levels, it doesn't matter that much. Use what you've learned playing so far, or just your gut feeling, to pick a combination of stats that you think is going to work for you, and don't worry about it too much. However, if you want to see how all the numbers interact, you can go into your character screen and start mousing over your stats to see how all the numbers work together. If you're starting at level 60, you're going to be given bits of adaptive armor over the course of the storyline. You do not need to worry about upgrading your armor until you reach the end of the story arc. But if for some reason you want to do it early, exit the story and head to the supply area of the fleet and look for your class-specific level 65 vendor. You can also find these vendors in your Alliance headquarters once you get that far in the story. Keep in mind, you can only buy this stuff once you hit level 65. So, there's no reason to exit the story to buy these upgrades before you hit level 65. In this case, my Sith Sorcerer would buy stuff from these guys here. There's one vendor for each data crystal type: common, glowing, and radiant. Now when I click on this vendor, you'll notice that there are pretty much two kinds of armor to pick from: duelist and further down, force healer. As this character is a healer, I will probably be buying the force healer type for her. If you're running DPS, you're going to want to buy the duelist type. You will see similar naming conventions on other vendors. Since these names have been known to change with expansions, I'm not going to make a list of all the specifics here. However, the names generally are descriptive, and you should be able to figure out which armors are for which level 65 class builds. But if you're really not sure, ask around or hit the Save Me Google button, and someone should be able to give you a hand. You can also craft armor that is at the same level as the armor you can buy on these vendors. So that is another option if you choose to pursue it, or happen to know a friendly neighborhood crafter. The other thing you should do at level 65 is look into getting yourself some augmentations. Augments are crafted components sold on the GTN, or crafted if you have the skill to do so. First, you'll snag yourself an augmentation kit like this one. Find yourself an item modification station, then pay the fee to have the augmentation slot added to the armor. Once the slot is there, you can put augments in it. You can do this for all your gear. You can put augments on your relics, on your earpieces, on your weapons, on your armor, all of it. And I really do recommend you augment all of it if you really want to fry some Knights of Zakul. That being said, if you're following along with the video from previously, you'll recall that I said you could find information about rotation and fighting for specific classes in class guides. The same advice is true for gearing your character at level 65. Most class guides will detail what relics, earpieces, implants, augmentations, everything you need to choose for your character. This is advice that will alleviate you having to make a decision on most of these fronts, and you'll often find very detailed information in these guides for exactly what kind of stats you need on your armor to maximize everything your character does. If you want to get into the nitty-gritty of gearing at level 65, a good class guide is the next step, and a good place to go to if you just want someone to tell you what to choose. As I've said previously, don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. I should also note that these class guides generally tell you what to buy at the very highest level of gearing for level 65. You may not be able to afford that. You may not be able to get that gear yet, especially in the case of gear that only comes from operations. However, the naming conventions for the items are generally the same. The only real difference is that the stats are increasing. So, you can still use that information to buy something at a slightly lower level that will be appropriate for your class and your build. That's all for this time. Next video, I'm going to be talking about defensive skills and how to use them and how to figure out how to use them. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.